I'm Anthony Hudson, 1278 3AW. And now back to Remember When with Bruce Mansfield and Philip Brady.
Pagan Circus, the show of shows.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum. This is Raymond, your host. Tonight we are going to make a long trip to Czechoslovakia. I'm afraid you won't have time to enjoy the scenery. It's dotted with nervous Nazis.
When touring the highways or on a Sunday cruise, I don't care what you're driving, there's no other gas like Amphol. When touring the byways, it's just the gas to choose. Be sure of arriving, you will if you ask for Amphol. The service is super beneath that roadside sign. It's the red, white and blue one. It's at your eye. I don't care what you spend, Amphol's always your friend. You'll be right, you'll be proud, join the happy Amphol crowd. Use Amphol, the best you can buy.
Welcome to the Amphol Show. Number, please, with Jack Davy. Hi-ho, everybody!
Presenting Chapter 545 of When a Girl Marries. Dedicated to those who are in love and all those who can remember.
Extra good, buddy. Nice seeing you. Ah, well, good morning, boys. Good morning, sir. Good morning, boys.
It's the Ford Show! Ford Motor Company of Australia presents this special edition of the Ford Show featuring Bob Gibson and the Ford Show Orchestra with the sweet singer Peggy Brooks and your master of ceremonies, Hayes Gordon. Memories there of a few radio programs from 3AW's past on this, the 60th anniversary of this radio station on air. I have the advertising log. The first ad was 8:15 a.m. for Bill's Hosiery. It was a session for a quarter of an hour talking about hosiery, and the cost here, £1.7 6. 6:30 p.m, TC Stores, Scatters, 40 words, £1. 6:35, Brockoff's Biscuit Scatters, 20 words. Scatters, incidentally, were scattered across the radio station. They were in all sessions. 9 shillings.
Sounds a bit like the loading and the sponsors have to pay for us to do a live read these days.
That's enormous. That's about $500. I mean, if I had all the loadings from Dick Wicks and Gilmore Chins, I'd be a millionaire. I could retire.
You could move out of that caravan park.
I could too. Sparkling Eyes, a quarter hour. Drummond's Musical Gems, half an hour. Brockoff's Scatters, 20 words. And so it goes. I just thought you'd like to see that.
We've had a very nice letter from Hilda Peachy to celebrate 60 years. Dear Bruce and Phil, many happy returns to 3AW. I never thought when 3AW opened that I would be a part of it for 60 years. From the beginning, it has been a part of my life. I was a chum with Nancy Lee and a member of Nicky and Tuppy's Breakfast Club, and we had some great times at the functions for charity. I was a night owl with Carol Brown, Nola Day and Jane Holmes in the 70s, and was a weather watcher for 3 3AW in the 70s. At Nicky's funeral at Springvale, I happened to be in the front of the crowd and my photo was in the paper. And it is also in Nancy's book. Being a chum was fun. I have lots of memorabilia, including Nicky's record he made for Mother's Day in 1956, Nancy and Graham. I play that record every Mother's Day. I also have Nicky and Nancy's photo taken at the time of their wedding. And you two boys have carried on the good work. I never miss listening to you. God bless you, Phil and Bruce, and happy birthday, 3AW. A letter from Hilda Peachy of Dandenong.
Sharing it all with a friend, personality radio. AW, we're a part of your life, personality radio. If it matters, if there's news right now, around the world, around the corner, we're more than headlines, we're Radio Melbourne, 1278. Making you laugh just for fun, personality radio. AW, entertainment, adventure, or music, 1278. Up to date with information, around the corner, across the nation. We're a part of your life, personality, 1278.
3AW.
Oh, is that right, Wes? We've just heard from Howard Craven up the line. He's still in the Macquarie Auditorium on the stage. Will we cross to him now?
Well, I think we should fairly shortly, with the reminder that at 7:30, Darren Hinch is calling us.
Exactly.
And there'd be people listening to us, like Hilda Peachy, who have been listening to 3AW since day one on the 22nd of February, 1932. And perhaps there are people who were actually born on that day.
That's
you
right.
might give us a call tonight on 696-1278.
I'm sure there are a lot of people born on that day. It, just because the station started meant that there were no births in Melbourne on that date.
So give us your memories of the past 60 years.
Here's one of the voices that contributed to 60 years of great broadcasting over the years and his reflections on this, the 60th birthday of Mike Williamson.
You know, Philip, I spoke to you the other day about all this, and I've just been looking through a list of guys that I worked with there. When I first started as a junior in short pants, mark you, blokes like Fred Tupper used to do the breakfast session. And a fella called Rex Walden. Have you ever heard of him?
And so the story goes.
The story goes, lovely, and he fancied a sip too. Rex Walden, Stan Hughes, the original radio roundsman, John Masters, they used to do a show called The People's Choice.
Yes.
And in those days, you had to really go in with a collar and tie on. The middle of the day, Saturday night, Sunday nights, bow tie. It was unbelievable.
So what did you start off doing, Mike?
Well, I started off as a junior announcer there. I was a strapper, really.
What was the year?
Oh, goodness gracious me, about 52, 53, 52, I think.
Well, you were straight out of school, were you?
Well, actually, Philip, you're so kind, and you're so accurate, really. I was straight out of school, as Geoff Allen, I was with him this afternoon. He often laughs about that, but I really was straight out of school. Working with all those greats, you know, Jim Woody Wood, who was a breakfast announcer in those days. A very sane sort of person, Jim Woody Wood.
Tell me the story you told me on the phone the other day about the cleaning lady who was upset when Happy Hammond took over the breakfast show.
Mrs. Renfrey?
Yes.
Well, Jimmy was always late. Jim Woody Wood was always late for the breakfast session. And Mrs. Renfrey used to do the first half hour of the breakfast session and loved it. Put the mop and the broom down, and could she carry on? Used to do all the commercials and everything. And she walked in one day and she said to Jim Woody Wood, Woody, you're sacked. There's a bloke coming from South Australia called Happy Hammond, which is a great misnomer because Happy never laughed in his life. Anyhow, Happy got over and eventually took over from Jim Woody Wood. But the thing that upset Mrs. Renfrey was she lost her half hour each day because Woody, seriously, was always a half hour late. And she used to do the half hour. When Happy Hammond started, he was always early.
Was she paid up in actors' equity, Mike?
Well, look, I couldn't answer, to be honest switch.
Well, wasn't management aware that this cleaning woman was doing the first half hour?
We had a bloke called Randall White, Uncle.
Any relation to Brian White, Mike?
I have no idea. But this manager we had in the early days of 3AW in the 50s, he only used to listen to the ABC. He hated commercial radio. Honest to God. And they got away with murder. And he didn't know there was such a person as Mrs. Renfrey. In fact, he didn't know who Jim Woody Wood was.
Isn't that amazing?
Honest to goodness. And he used to say to the people, I don't like commercial radio. I love the ABC.
Yes, we've got
Personality,
comment,
personality,
sport,
personality,
talk,
personality,
music,
personality.
words with meaning just for you. Only on a double.
Mike Williamson there with his reflections of 3AW, a great broadcasting station in the city of Melbourne. The skyline has changed, but, well, 3AW has changed too a lot over the years, hasn't it, Phil?
Well, the skyline has changed for us completely now. Of course, suddenly we are south of the Yarra, aren't we, with a new outlook on Melbourne.
Exactly. In a moment, I'm going to replay part of Darren Hinch's last radio program on this station. And I think we all know the important part that Darren played in the lifestyle of Melbourne and in this radio station, so we can't go past him, and a salute to him in a moment.
And in this hour, Darren speaks to us live on Remember When, the Sunday night for State Trustees. Already, Mike Williamson and Tony Charlton have both paid tribute to John Masters, the man who did The Choice of the People, and this was his theme.
You're with Bruce Mansfield and Philip Brady
Somebody knocking on the phone.
on 1278 3AW.
Did you ever hear of anybody marrying a man?
Sure.
Who?
My sister.
Why is a pharmacy much more than just a place to get your prescriptions filled? Here's David Strike of David Strike's Amcal Pharmacies.
We find it's very important for customers to be able to ask questions about any products in our pharmacy. Our senior staff, our junior staff do extra training to be able to answer all of the questions that customers may ask.
For free advice, see your pharmacist. There's one near you, including Joe Starr Glen Hutley Chemmart Pharmacy, 1225 Glen Hutley Road, Glen Hutley, and Richard Edwards Chemmart Pharmacy, 36 Webb Street, Narre Warren.
Summer can be the loneliest time of the year.
You're not on your own.
Because of heat stress, your car is likely to be less reliable. The air conditioner puts added strain on your engine. The cooling system is taxed to boiling point. Tires are more likely to blow out, leaving you stranded.
You can call on me.
This summer, why risk being alone and stranded? Join the RACV. We'll get you going.
Thanks, mate.
No worries. Like him or loathe him, Darren Hinch has played a very important part in this radio station, particularly in the early 80s to the late 80s. He was here for about 8 to 10 years, Phil.
Yes, I think Darren was a worthy successor to Norman Banks, Ormsby Wilkin and Claudia, so that's a compliment. He really, I feel, replaced all three.
And I was very proud to be part of the breakfast program with John Blackman in those great days, and then following Darren there was Muriel Cooper and Mark Day and Ray Taylor at night. It was a very strong station, and it was a station that people tuned into to find out what was happening in Melbourne in those days.
Yes.
And here's a tribute to the man that spearheaded those early 80s, Darren Hinch.
For the last time on 3AW, good morning. I've said that more than 2,000 times in the past 9 years, and going back through our library of tapes, inadequate as it may be, I've actually said it to a lot of people. Bob Hawke, Mr Prime Minister, good morning. Morning, Darren. Bob Hope, good morning.
Good morning.
John Cleese, good morning. Good morning. Walter Cronkite, good morning.
Good morning.
David Coombe, good morning.
Good morning, Darren.
Anthony Perkins, good morning.
Good morning, thank you.
Mr Peacock, good morning.
Good morning, Darren. I just rang to sincerely congratulate you. I'm not going to send you a telegram this time. I thought I'd like to do it publicly on Melbourne's past rating morning program.
Well, thank you very much, Bert. Mr Murdoch, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Hinch.
Nice to talk to you again.
Likewise.
Jack Lemon, good morning.
Darren, how are you?
I have the Prime Minister in the studio. Mr Fraser, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Mr Spike Milligan, good morning.
That's why I was wondering who I am. I had a hard night last night.
Premier Hamer, good morning.
Good morning, Darren.
There are notes in the General Manager's book saying Bette Midler should be shot.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. What'll I do now?
Good morning. And good morning from one of the hellholes of this earth. Mr Kennedy, good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to have you on the programme. Mr Whitlam, good morning.
Good morning, Darren.
Bob Geldof, good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Claudette Colbert, good morning.
Good morning.
Harrison Ford, thanks for coming in.
Our pleasure to be here.
And Miss Lauren Bacall, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
And thank you. So on this final program, in recent days, I have been wondering, I must admit, how I do this for the last time, wondering how to start a final opening comment, a final editorial. And I'm not going to say too much, as a matter of fact, because most of what I have to say has been said. And if it hasn't been said by now, then I guess I've failed. You have given me a hell of an experience. We have had together some big wins and some big losses. It truly has been a roller coaster ride. I mentioned earlier in the week that my team, my incredible team here at 3AW, has been sifting through old tapes, remembering old campaigns, some serious ones, some funny ones, some wins, some losses, some successes, some failures. I remember years ago trotting off to Canberra in all earnestness with a petition of 30,000 signatures trying to put an end to the export of live sheep and horses for slaughter overseas. That was under a Liberal government. That didn't work. Didn't matter that what we did, the cruelty continued, still goes on under a Labor government. We had trips. We had an award-winning trip to China for the first ever live broadcast from there. Along the way, I broadcast from Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, London, New York, Washington, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Went to India, to Ethiopia, to the Sudan. Broadcast from Perth, from Sydney, from Alice Springs, where we tried to see Halley's Comet. Didn't ever get to do the broadcast I had planned from Moscow and the Antarctic, but that's life. I didn't get to broadcast from outer space as the first civilian astronaut. But I did get to watch men go to the moon for the first time, and we might replay a minute or two of that later in the morning. Hi, I'm Darren Hinch. Marshall McLuhan used to talk about the global village, and that's what broadcasters, current affairs broadcasters, have to aim towards in the satellite-fed space shuttle world of the 80s. Trying to explore the global village this year, I visited Washington to talk to people like presidential contender Teddy Kennedy.
Tragically, the U.S. policy towards South Africa over the period of the last 5 years has been one of constructive engagement. Which I believe, as Winnie Mandela told me, is really a shoulder to the wheel of apartheid. And I think it's imperative...
The word for constructive engagement.
Constructive engagement is the Reagan administration's policy towards... it has not reflected what even the common usage or understanding of the words might suggest.
To New York to talk to controversial, alleged attempted wife killer Klaus von Bülow in his only radio interview. Have you ever given your wife any sort of injection?
No.
Not injections for vitamins?
Nope.
As claimed?
As claimed.
Was that your bag with the syringe in it?
The bag itself was originally mine insofar that it contained a small calculator. And I'm sure there was never any syringe. I mean... Look, I'm not going to testify over the radio.
No,
I'm just answering your questions as briefly as possible.
To Ethiopia to show the shame of the global village theory and to talk to the victims and to the new Dr. Livingstons. But you also cannot, as a talk personality, ignore the stories back home right on your own doorstep. You cannot or should not ignore them, and you also shouldn't buckle when goons invade your studio, like when you end up face-to-face with the BLF.
We want Hinch! We want Hinch! We want Hinch! We want Hinch! We want Hinch!
They've got a choice the way I see it. Either Hinch comes out and talks to us, or we might have to go there and talk to him. What do you reckon? Is that the way you do things, is it? You're all the Democrats in the world, aren't you? We don't claim to be what we're not. We're simple builders labourers. You're going to put you reckon it's open season on us. You're a simple builders. Lunches and Layabouts Federation, you great champions. Hey? What do you think the people think of you? Here he is. Darren. Darren, how are you? Hi. Great champion. The bloke from the remand centre. Have you come to listen to him, or have you just come to make a noise? We can turn him on any day of the week. That's right. All right. And you can turn him off. We don't. What we've come here is the remand centre. We want you to apologise for what you said about him yesterday. If you want, they haven't got any bands on.
If you want to come on here, want to get a spokesman, come on here and talk to me. I'm quite happy to do that.
Go on. We want to hear all of us.
You're on radio.
All of you want to be on. We all want to hear.
I'm prepared to talk to find a spokesman. I'll put him on air. Quite happy to do that. And come on in. I'd make the point that if I burst into your place of employment, you'd black the place. If I burst into your place of employment, I'm making my money, I'm doing my job, you're doing your job. But when what's your job? My job. What's your job? On the bloody radio. My job is to run a radio program which I'm running at this very moment. If one of you wants to come in and make a statement or talk to me, I'm more than happy to do that. The slogan for the dying people of Africa is Save the World. The radio slogan should be Shrink the World. This year, I hope we did shrink it even a little bit. This is Darren Hinch.
Sharing it all with a friend. Personality Radio. AW. We're a part of your life. Personality Radio. If it matters, if it's news right now. Around the world, around the corner. We're a part of your life. Personality 1278 3AW.
There, a montage of memories from the Hinch days and the last program that Darren conducted on this radio station, celebrating its 60th birthday tonight.
And Darren Hinch will phone us live on Remember When very, very shortly. And on our 60th birthday, for you and for Wes and for Anthony in the newsroom, and I guess in spirit for all our Remember When listeners, Hazel Truin has baked a beautiful birthday cake. Beautiful. Look at that, with 60 candles on it. and I've brought in some plates and some spoons. I could only find soup spoons, but I'm sure that'll be adequate for you, and some cream and some serviettes. And Hayes, we thank you for your kindness, not only for the birthday cake, but for the other goodies that you baked for me during the week.
Well, what did she bake for you during the week?
Well, some cauliflower, some parsnips, baked potatoes,
wouldn't have minded
chicken.
Look at them.
I haven't seen you since Thursday evening, though, you see, and I didn't know that they'd keep.
What have we got to cut the cake with? Oh, you've only got spoon. Oh, you really are.
I have a knife.
He's a typical bachelor.
No, but you'll have to eat your cake with soup spoons, guys. It's the best I could do, but it's just to put you in party mood, as that previous piece was called, composed by Jack Strachey, the theme for the choice of the people.
Where have you had that cake, by the way? Has it been in the boot?
Oh, in your own boot.
No, has it been in the boot?
Well, of course, but temperature hasn't been over 28 degrees this week.
It'll taste of castrol.
No, it won't. There's a bit of a tyre mark on it where my spare fell on it when I turned around the corner.
I want you to make love with me.
Nothing.
About jealousy.
Sucking?
I thought you weren't jealous.
I'm not. I don't believe in jealousy. It's for the weak.
About marriage.
You can stick this marriage right in your bottom.
About fashion.
Get your clothes on. Will you leave immediately, please?
Education.
Don't call me stupid.
I've known sheep that could outwit you.
And skullduggery.
There's something funny going on.
John Cleese, Kevin Kline, Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Palin. A Fish Called Wanda. Tonight on 7.
A Toyota Olympic moment.
At the last Winter Olympics in Calgary, a young East German woman stunned the world with her looks as much as her uncommunistic flair on the ice. Figure skater Katarina Witt revived memories of an impish, smiling gymnastic named Olga Korbut, who a decade earlier had done much to break the image of the dour Soviets at the Munich Summer Games. Stunningly beautiful Katarina broke the mold of muscular East German Fräuleins, won gold with stunning grace, and today tours the new world a superstar.
Winter Olympic moments, proudly brought to you by Toyota. We come up against noise everywhere. Most of it is most unwelcome. Our ears are delicate instruments that don't react well to abuse. Hearing loss is by far the most prevalent occupational disease and has devastating effects on the individual, their family and friends. Protect your hearing with earmuffs, earplugs, or by avoiding loud noise. Hearing is wonderful. The Eye and Ear Hospital says wearing ear protection sure beats being deaf.
Your official station for the Barcelona Olympics. 1278 3AW.
This is Remember When, as we celebrate the 60th birthday of 3AW, and you have a quick contest there.
Yes, try yourself out on this if you can. What do these films have in common? And the actors too. James Cagney in Man of a Thousand Faces. Julie Andrews in Star. Errol Flynn in Too Much, Too Soon. And Glenda Jackson in The Incredible Sarah. What is the common thread about those movie stars?
Did the main star dress up as a woman or a man?
No, not at all. James Cagney in Man of a Thousand Faces. Julie Andrews in Star. Errol Flynn in Too Much, Too Soon. And Glenda Jackson in The Incredible Sarah.
Were they all real-life characters? Did they portray an actor or actress or singer or dancer who was a real person?
Exactly right. These are actors who starred in films about other actors. Well done.
Remember When, and our birthday nights as we link up with Billy Caron, a very popular person around the corridors of 3AW in the production side and also on air with Jeff Mannion and Peter James. Her reflections on this birthday of 3AW.
I was just thinking of the highs and lows. The highs certainly for me was, well, the friends I made at 3AW, I must say that, and all the young people kept me kind of feeling young. Also the listeners, the support I got and the goodwill from the listeners. But the lows, the nadir of my 18 years at 3AW was selling airtime. I was so bad at it. And also the mice. Did you know there were lots of mice running around?
No.
Didn't you you ever seen a mouse?
No, I've seen a bit of ratsack thrown around, but I thought that was for some of the blokes on air.
Oh my God! When we were up in the Erie, that's where the Hinge program was before they moved right upstairs. The mice used to run around there, and I was producing Muriel Cooper. Jane Clark and I were the producers, and Jane wasn't a bit scared, but I could faint at the sight of a dead mouse, and they were everywhere. It always felt the ghost of Ormsby still walked the corridors. And Millie, the dog.
Oh, I'd forgotten about Millie.
Millie used to be left in the studio overnight sometimes, and Alex would throw a rug over and give her biscuits. And then Ormsby would ring me up and say, I forgot Millie, Billy. Would you drop her off?
Billy, if you had to recall one highlight from all those years at 3AW, I think you said 18 of them, what would it be?
The best highlight?
Yes.
Well, I think the best highlight that I can think of, the most, how would you say, exciting thing that ever happened to me was when I was a producer, not on air. And that was when Jane Clark and I were producing Muriel, and Muriel was #1 in the afternoon. And that was really good.
Sharing it all with a friend, personality radio. AW, we're a part of your life, personality radio. If it matters, if there's news right now, around the world, around the corner, we're more than headlines, we're Radio Melbourne, 1278. Making you laugh just for fun, personality radio. AW, entertainment, adventure, or music, 1278. Up to date with information, around the corner, across the nation. We're a part of your life, personality, 1278.
3AW. Until midnight, you're listening to Remember When with Bruce Mansfield and Philip Brady on 1278 3AW.
Well, Phil, apart from being the station of the stars in Melbourne, the station with personality, more importantly, perhaps, is the fulfilment of news, the bringing in of news, the reporting of it, the dissection in current affairs and editorials that the station has been famous for over the years.
Yes, I think 3AW has always blazed the trail in news in Melbourne.
Not only did they cover very effectively the Ash Wednesday bushfires in the mid-80s, which swept across from South Australia right through to up the Dandenongs, the Belgrave and places like Olinda were devastated, and up through Macedon. And they were the days when 3AW stayed on air with a non-stop appeal for clothing, blankets, food, and money for the Salvation Army. And
in fact, you were involved in that appeal, weren't you?
That's right. We all went up the station, all in a bus, I think we went up in. Darren Hinch, myself, John Blackman, and Alex Kenworthy, the whole crew. We went up to the community of Macedon and handed over the appeal donations to the devastated townsfolk.
Yes, I think towns like Cockatoo were almost wiped out, weren't they?
That's right. But how it started, and when the first news came through, when Melbourne was just covered with ash, and you may have been on the Gold Coast.
No, I think this was 84. I think this was a couple of years before I went away. I remember it well.
Melbourne's skyline was covered with ash and smoke, and the first we heard of it was on Mark Day's programme in the afternoon.
I mentioned at the opening the South Australian fires. Things are pretty grim over there. We have decided to interrupt that block of ads that were meant to be broadcast then to cross live to 5DN Adelaide for their 4 o'clock news. It's 4:30 here, of course, but in Adelaide it's 4 o'clock, and just as soon as I get the go, here we go.
Macquarie National News with Neil Beattie. Good
afternoon. Well, as you've probably heard, if you've been listening to 5DN, bushfires have broken out all over the city, the hills, and further out. On the line, we have Peter Hennicum, who is at CFS headquarters. Peter, can you tell us what's happening?
The Brown Hill Creek Conservation Park is on fire. We understand that the 3 service stations on Eagle on the Hill are under threat, and the Eagle Hotel is reported to have been burnt out. Several houses on Mount Lofty are ablaze, and at least 5 houses at Mount Osmond have been destroyed, and 1 at Bridgewater. The Hahndorf Hospital is being evacuated because of the fire, which is spread on a front from far past Mount Barker. There have been several reports of injuries and of people being rescued from homes. The Defence Forces have been called in to assist the firefighters, and the CFS says houses have been lost in all of the major fires. The fire at McLaren Flat in the Kaipo Forest is still raging out of control, as is the fire at Parrotcombe, Gumaraka, Spalding, Mylor, and then in the country areas we have fires at Lucendale in the southeast and 8 Mile Creek in the southeast and at Clare. The fire at Parrotcombe has burnt through the golf course and is heading for the town, and CFS and police say all roads into the hills have now been closed. Areas around Hahndorf, Bridgewater, McLaren Flat and Mount Osmond have been evacuated. At CFS headquarters, this is Peter Hennicum from Macquarie National News.
Thank you, Peter. Just a short time ago, one of our other journalists, Murray Nicol, who's also a part-time fireman, was caught in a fire with a number of other people, and we spoke to him direct on the two-way radio.
We are in major strife. We are crouching down behind a farmhouse. There are children. They're spraying us with water. The sky is red and then white. It's going crazy. The fire's jumped 100 feet high, 150 feet high, straight over the top of Green Hill Road. There are something like 120 houses at risk up here. I don't know how many have gone. We are in deep trouble. We don't know. We can't see any houses. Green Hill Road is just wiped out.
Murray, how many people are there with you?
1, 2, 3. There are a dozen people here with me. We can hardly breathe. The air is white. The air is white with heat, with smoke, and it's red. And there are women crying, and there are children here, and we are in trouble.
It's 5 to 5, and please spare a thought for the people in Adelaide. We have this report from Murray Nicol.
The front section of my house is blazing. The roof has fallen in. My water tanks are useless. There is absolutely nothing I can do about it. All my belongings, Frankie's taken the children down to town. The last I saw of Frankie, she was at the Summertown, at the Green Hill fire station, manning the radio. In the car were our personal files, and with our children, with friends downtown, with a bunch of photographs. The rest is a total write-off. The house is just going before my eyes.
Murray, are you there on your own, or do you have some friends with you?
I have my next-door neighbour, Ron Wells, standing here looking just as hopeless as I am. His house appears to be all right. There was a knapsack sitting on his front veranda. It's burnt. It's gone. I mean, this is indescribable. That fire came up out of President Reserve and across Green Hill Road like no fire I have ever seen. 150 feet high, they must have been. Deep red flames, and it's gone through this entire Green Hill area. Lord knows how many other homes are gone as well as mine.
Murray, where has the fire gone after leaving your house? In what direction?
Can't see for smoke. When it went through, we were sheltering behind the farmhouse up the road with the other firemen and friends and children that we'd grabbed from homes. And the air was full of cinders and flame, and we couldn't see it. You couldn't open your eyes against it. We huddled down around the children in the shelter of the stone wall of the farmhouse in the hope that it would go over the top. And it did. It went right over the top of the farmhouse and burned everything around it.
You just can't imagine the almost white-hot conditions that he was speaking from and about that the Mount Lofty Rangers must have been on that day.
Yes, it was horrific. The date was the 16th of February, 1983, and 75 perished in South Australia and Victoria.
This was 16 minutes to 8, and that was just part, rather than bring a dampener on the program, but just part of the great network of news-gathering sources that the station has at its command. And I tend to agree with Neil Mitchell when he says there's no medium that is so quick and can cover those crises and events other than radio. And that was direct from Adelaide on that eventful day in the 80s.
Yes, Ash Wednesday, 1983. I think on an occasion like that, radio comes into its own, Bruce.
As it did in the radio drama, and Howard Craven is waiting to take up the story at the Macquarie Auditorium. You think you'll be back, Howard Craven, but if you stand on the stage there of the Macquarie Auditorium in Sydney, we may be back to you in the next hour.
Oh, yes, I think we should. It's, you know, radio at its best, isn't it? Particularly Superman. What a classy serial that was for its day.
It really was. The effects and the music, everything was planned beautifully to perfection. Even the voice, the gravelly voice of the narrator.
Frank Bennett.
Frank Bennett, he sounded like Metropolis would have looked, you know, grey and foreboding.
But if a song can evoke memories, how much more so an old serial from your childhood days?
Oh, yes, and the theme to it.
It brings it all back very vividly, doesn't it?
It certainly does. We're bringing back a lot tonight. And after 8 o'clock, we'll be interspersing in the Rick Milne segment, collectibles and valuations, if you'd like to give us a call, and also your memories and Rick's memories of Melbourne and 3AW that he grew up with.
Obviously, Darren Hinch has been delayed in talking to us tonight on Remember When, but hopefully we will be in contact with him a little later. There is no doubt we will be speaking in the next couple of hours to both Margaret Fletcher and John Hindle.
In the next hour, Alex Kenworthy, Nikki and Nancy Lee, Dennis Gibbons, Harry Beitzel, Bill Jacobs, John Blackman, The Great Debate, Darren James, Ormsby Wilkins and Louise Humphrey.
Here's an idea that'll please you and your teenager. ABC Driving School's prepaid driving vouchers. Prepay 5 lessons with ABC and you'll receive 1 free lesson. It's great value. Help put the teenager in your life behind the wheel and save at the same time. Prepay 5 lessons with ABC and you'll receive 1 free lesson. But it's only with ABC Driving School, teaching Victorians to drive safely since 1946. ABC, call today. They're under ABC in the white pages. Lifeline has been providing a telephone counselling service to the Melbourne community for over 20 years. Nearly 100 people ring Lifeline every day for help with family and relationship problems, health, drugs, separation and stress. To continue providing this vital community service, Lifeline needs volunteers to be trained as telephone counsellors in the Arabic, Greek, Italian, Turkish, Vietnamese, as well as English languages. So if you're concerned about people, can undertake training and can commit yourself to regular voluntary work, please ring the Lifeline office now on 662 1677.
Robert Di Domenico has performed some amazing feats, inspirational goals, courageous marks, tough and rugged play. He handed it out and he copped it. Now he's ready to cop it again, this time from you with the Dipper Dare. Send your Dipper Dare to 3AW 43 Bank Street, South Melbourne. Every Monday, Neil Mitchell will announce the dare. Then during the week, Dipper will tell us how he's going. If your dare is chosen, you'll win a $100 Tabaret voucher. The Dipper Dare, with thanks to Tabaret on 1278 3AW.
You're part of the celebrations as 3AW reaches 60 years of age this weekend.
The themes, the serials, the shows, the personalities, all part of Remember When between now and midnight on 3AW.
Coming up shortly, the 8 o'clock news, then Rick Milne on 696 1278, and some great people for you to meet tonight.
And of course, Howard Craven, who's narrating the golden years of radio serials, is still working in radio today.
Yes, he is.
He's in Sydney at either KY or CH, I think, one of the beautiful music stations.
With a man called Len London.
Len used to be Jack Davies' announcer.
And he is still on air at 2CH in Sydney.
Well, let's hope for us yet, buddy.
You're on Remember When with Bruce Mansfield and Philip Brady. Now, 3AW National Network News.
A top of 20 expected for tomorrow. At the moment it's 17 degrees in Melbourne at 8 o'clock. In this news, James Scott talks on his Himalayan ordeal. The federal ALP to intervene over Michael Tate and campaigning underway in Wills. Good evening, I'm Anthony Hudson. Medical student James Scott has spoken about his harrowing ordeal in the Himalayas. The 23-year-old is fighting to regain his vision through diet inadequacies and is plagued by nightmares. He survived 43 days in the freezing cold, living on snow and chocolate. Now recovering in Brisbane Hospital, James says he was scared but determined to keep going and prayed his family wouldn't give up looking for him. Doctors say he's suffering only minor post-traumatic stress symptoms. James has told the Nine Network's 60 Minutes he's not embarrassed by claims his survival was a miracle.
Oh, well, I really don't know. When I was in Patan, which is where I was hospitalised, I thought it's a miracle I was found, but now that I look back on the story, now that I look back on the whole thing, the story's just amazing.
Labor's National President Stephen Loosley says the party's national executive will intervene to save Justice Minister Michael Tate's career. Senator Tate has been relegated to the unwinnable fourth position on the Tasmanian Labor Senate ticket. Senator Loosley says he can't understand the reason for the move, which will embarrass the party federally.
It's impossible to read. Senator Tate has been an outstanding member of the Hawke and Keating governments. He ought to be in a very prominent position on the Senate ticket. He is an electoral asset of first order. He should be retained.
And the Liberal Party has started its campaign to win Bob Hawke's old Melbourne seat of Wills by calling for an immediate by-election. The party has been buoyed by an opinion poll showing a swing that would lose the seat for Labor in a by-election. Deputy Opposition Leader Peter Reith says the sooner the election comes, the better. He says the federal government wants to delay a by-election because it's concerned about the aftermath of the Prime Minister Bob Hawke's resignation. The by-election is expected to be held in either April or May. Overseas, Alan Bond is said to be doing quite well, renting out his two adjoining houses in London. Barry Rocard reports estate agents say he's making around $12,000 a week.
Mr. Bond turned to the rejuvenated London rental market early last year when he couldn't find a buyer for the joint property with 12 bedrooms in Kensington. He'd been asking the equivalent of $12 million for them, and rather than knock down the price, he decided to try his luck at letting them. For the past 5 months, the occupier has been a Saudi Arabian prince, but he's moving out at the end of the month, and so the agents are offering them for around $630,000 a year. Barry Rocard, London.
Turning to sport, and openers Desmond Haynes and Brian Lara have starred in the West Indies' 10-wicket victory over Pakistan in the World Cup cricket match at the MCG. Haynes made an unbeaten 93, while Lara retired hurt on 88 at the Windies' winning total of no wicket for 222. However, Lara is now in doubt for Wednesday's match against the West Indies at the MCG after injuring his toe. Meantime, in New Zealand, Sri Lanka defeated Zimbabwe by 3 wickets. Still on cricket, and Australia has recorded an innings at 85-run victory over England in the one-off women's test at North Sydney Oval.